Hey everybody, this is Sean Riley with Riley Real Estate and MassHomesale.com with this week's Q&A Saturday video. This week I'm going to answer the question of how do I sell a house in probate. So probate is the process that somebody has to go through to finalize the affairs of somebody who is recently deceased. Obviously not a fun process because somebody had to have died, and generally the people settling the estate are their closest family members. So not a desirable task and not something people generally want to deal with immediately after the death of a close loved one. But we're not going to get into too deep into the general probate process because we generally deal with real estate here, and that's what we're going to talk about, is dealing with that particular asset. But just for some of the basics, probate in pretty much every area, it starts by needing to file some forms to get appointed as, I'm just going to use the term personal representative, executor, administrator, stuff like that are used in different places for different and in different situations, but generally personal representative is sort of an all-encompassing term that everybody in most states and most situations are familiar with to kind of cover all of those different scenarios. So somebody gets appointed as the personal representative, and then they have to basically settle all the affairs, pay off the debts, and then distribute or liquidate the rest of the assets and then distribute that to the heirs. Sometimes it can be fairly simple. If it's a situation where somebody dies and there's a surviving spouse, it's generally pretty easy. Similarly, if there's like an only child as the main heir, that's pretty easy. In Massachusetts, back in 2012, they actually changed the Uniform Probate Code to include what's called the informal and formal processes. The formal process is more what people are used to and expect. You go and you have to deal with a judge in a court, and there's all sorts of statutory dates and procedures that need to be followed. But then when everything is wrapped up, they close the probate and pretty much the estate is settled. It takes a little over a year in that process because basically creditors have a year to come out and make a claim against the estate. So as the process is going on, pretty much it has to wait until the end of that timeline. But once that passes, things can be closed, and then any future claims are basically extinguished because they didn't get done in time. The informal process is a little bit different in that regard, where basically people can make claims, up to, so especially dealing with real estate, the probate is not formally closed till a year after basically the personal representative signs off on saying that the estate is all settled, and up to 3 years after the person is deceased. Again, depending on how the probate process is handled. So, in regards to real estate, the process is actually pretty much the same either way. In any scenario except for when the person died, had a will, and gave the personal representative authority to sell their real estate in the will, and they go through the formal probate process, is the only exception to having to get what's called a license to sell. Now again, remember, people who might be watching this from other parts of the country, this is specific to Massachusetts. You probably have some similar laws, but they're probably going to be somewhat different, so make sure you read up on your own laws, and generally a good idea to talk to a probate attorney. That's the same case in Massachusetts here. Don't try to do this just based on what you hear in this video. But anyway, so you need to get a license to sell, which basically is a petition to the court to give you permission to sell the real estate that is in the estate of the deceased. It's not a complicated procedure, and generally should go through okay. There are some hang-ups. First is you can't apply to it basically until you have an offer in hand, because one of the pieces of information that they want is what it's being sold for. And then if the price changes at any point in the process after you apply for the license to sell, you have to reapply for the license to sell. They also have a shelf life that's generally long enough that you don't have to worry about that, because again, you have to have an offer in hand to start with, so it's generally not a problem. This could be more of a problem in the very short term as the new TRID guidelines come out and closings for people who are getting bank loans are going to take a little bit longer. Probably not long enough to make this a big issue here, but it is something to keep in mind. So it's not that difficult to sell the real estate, but there are some procedures you have to go through, some hassles you have to deal with. Again, like I said, if the price changes, you have to reapply for the license to sell. You might, if there's a negotiation point that comes up, you either need to, say if it's something that came up on a home inspection, you either need to make the fix or you need to reapply for the license to sell. And to be honest, I can't think of a group of people less likely to want to actually put work into a house that they're selling than the heirs of a probate house that they're just trying to sell and not have to deal with. So that's something that can be kind of annoying. So if you're dealing with an investor, we can help you get through the process, get all the paperwork in order. We're not going to be changing the price because we're generally not going to be doing any additional inspections. We're generally not going to be looking for bank financing, so we don't have to deal with any of those timelines there. So having to worry about the license to sell expiring is probably not going to be an issue, all sorts of stuff. So, if you have a house that you are going to be inheriting and it's in probate and you just want to sell it, you can definitely get in touch with us. We buy throughout Massachusetts and southern New Hampshire. Even if you're outside of those areas, you can get in touch with us, as we do have a network of people that we can contact to help you. Other than that, we're going to link to some of the laws for Massachusetts. If you have 15 or 16 hours, a bad case of insomnia, or a ton of caffeine, you can look through all of that. A few other sources, including a great article we had from Sharon Vornholt last year about demystifying the probate process. Very good generic overview of how things should work in most states. Nothing specific to Massachusetts or New Hampshire in that article, so it's good for everybody. And other than that, as always, if you have any questions or comments, put them below. And if you have anything you'd like to see in a future video, you can post it to our Facebook page, our Twitter account, send an email to info@masshomesale.com, or you can put something in the comments of this or one of our other videos, or go to the website and fill out a contact form or something like that. Other than that, I hope you guys had a great week, and hope you have a great one moving forward, and I'll talk to you next week. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.